All right, welcome to the Ravit Show, everyone. Super excited for today's show. We have Andre Franca from CausaLens today, and we'll be talking a lot around ChatGPT, Causal AI, a relationship between humans and machines, CausaLens, and much more. So feel free to have your questions coming in for Andre and get the tough ones. I'm sure Andre would like that. What I wanted to let you guys know was about a cool giveaway that we are doing, and I already see a lot of folks typing in hashtag the Ravit Show. What we are doing is basically collecting all the hashtags here, and towards the end of the show, I'll be doing something which is very cool. And I hope I don't forget that, but I'll surely be making sure that I'll be announcing one winner who gets the swag of the Ravit Show. So don't forget to, with your questions for Andre, don't forget to put in hashtag the Ravit Show in the chat, and we'll get the ball rolling. Awesome. All right, I'll quickly get our guest up here to discuss more. Hey, Andre, welcome to the Ravit Show.
Hey, Ravit, thank you very much for having me today. Pleasure to be here.
It's such an honor, and definitely this is one of the most interesting and intriguing topics people want to learn about. People want to, obviously, we talk more around, like get their heads around ChatGPT, get their heads around Causal AI. Also, if I'm sure a lot of folks also have questions where will AI replace humans? And we will get all those questions for you today, and looking forward to it. But for our audience, why not start with your introduction?
Absolutely. So I'm currently the VP of Research and Development here at CausaLens. I've been at CausaLens for a bit over 2 years, and my role in the company is essentially to go and figure out what are the latest things happening in all of the science and technology around the areas of causal AI, causal inference, and so on, and generally artificial intelligence as well, and make sure that we can actually productize this and give this to our clients in a way that actually generates value for them. I've been at CausaLens for a bit over 2 years. Prior to that, I was at Goldman Sachs. I was in a group which is called Model Risk Management. The entire purpose of the group was to actually understand like what can go really, really wrong when you're using quantitative models in order to manage the company's money, in order to deal with clients and so on. But my background is in physics. I was working on black holes and early universe. I was in the University of Munich. I did my PhD in that. And yeah, that's what I did before I decided to venture into artificial intelligence.
Okay, that's a pretty cool background that you have, Andre, and definitely we'll be talking more about your current thoughts around AI and also the future of AI. But why not start with, definitely I want to understand more about what is causal AI, and if you can explain us more about that and how does it differ from the traditional AI and machine learning. That would help us to get around our heads around causal AI. I'm sure about that.
Absolutely. So to try to understand what is causal AI, right? Let's focus on the first word, which is causal. The whole point of causal AI is to develop an understanding of cause and effect relationships in the data. So think about it. Think about it this way, right? You do have, all throughout the year, shark attacks that are happening, and you also have ice cream sales. So
Right.
as a human being, what's going on, right? That these two variables
Right.
are correlated, right? Which means like when you see more shark attacks, you also see more people buying ice creams. Which means like if you plug it into a machine learning model, you can have a beautiful model that can predict ice cream sales from shark attacks and vice versa. But the reality as a human being, you understand it's like, temperature acts as a driver of ice cream sales, acts as a driver for shark attacks. Therefore, there is actually no causal relationship between the two. So of course, it's a very stupid example, but if you think about it, like if you think about the whole world of data analysis, the whole world of machine learning, imagine how many examples are akin to this one, but are completely missed because machines at the moment, they cannot necessarily differentiate between what is causal and what is just correlated. So this is the goal of causal AI, is to understand, okay, these relationships are causal, these relationships are not. But what is the so
Right.
what, right? What do we gain by doing that? The idea is the following: is that if your objective is to just predict or just look for patterns in the data, machine learning does it really well. But if you want to intervene in the data, right? If you want to say that, look, I want to increase my ice cream sales, then you need to understand what is causing ice cream sales to increase, right? Therefore, you
Mm,
will go there and you will act in some of these causes in order to increase ice cream sales, and you know that it will be useless to get more sharks in the in the beach, right? That's not going to affect how many ice creams you're selling. So that's a general idea, to go beyond just predictions, to go beyond pattern matching, in order to really understand what are the things that you can influence in order to make better
mm.
decisions.
Okay. No, I think those are pretty cool. First of all, great insights, great example there. It can, obviously uh, makes us learn causal AI very easily. With the term, I kind of thought it had to be something very difficult, but it's not that complex. So very, very good there. In definitely, Anna there likes your example from the audience, and Dustin as well, which definitely is a great example. We also have a few questions coming in here from YouTube, but before that, I'll be jumping into my next question, which is around, what do you like? Uh, what do you feel about, is increasingly seemingly exponential increase in AI products? Why do you see that, and what research have has gone into, in the year 2022, 2023? Any examples that you could share, and why is it exponentially growing, to be just clear
Mhm.
on the question? Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. No, I think this was a remarkable year, right? If you think about the advancements in AI, and here I'm going to highlight two things, which I'm sure that it's what everyone is thinking about, which is ChatGPT, and
Right.
then all of the other examples of generative models for image creation, like Midjourney, DALL-E, Stable Diffusion, and so on. And of course, right, these are the ones that are made public, and here is the reason why this is all happening now. The situation is the following: is that a lot of the science, it had already existed, right? And one of the main criticisms of ChatGPT, which I don't necessarily think it's a criticism, it's just the reality,
Mm,
is that
right.
the base technology, which the base transformers which are used in order to create ChatGPT, it's known. It's a known thing for a few years already. What is beautiful about the way that it was done is that, first, it's very, very big, right? It's huge. It costs millions to train to train one of these models. Just in how much electricity it's spent in actually running the training routine in the computer. So it is a very, very large and very expensive model to train. That's one thing. But the other thing is the following: it's not just about that core uh, pure science of training that model. What they did is,
Right.
like, they actually thought about it from a product first point of view, which is, what are the things that we need to do to this model in order to actually make it usable for a human being at the end of the day. So there was a lot of post processing, a lot of extra steps beyond just training the model in order to make it into a reasonable product. And I think this is also reflected in what we saw with the image products, right? Which is that at the end of the day, the technology, there was some scientific advancements that happened, but people, they started waking up to the reality that you need to make it uh, you need to actually make a product that humans can use, right? And there was a lot of research into that part as well, which is like, how do you actually ensure that when you put into the hands of a human, it's going to just be natural for us to use. And I
Right.
think that it also echoes some of the things that we are developing in terms of causal AI, right? Because causal AI as well, it's an area that still hasn't been as explored as generative models
Mm,
in the in the common sense, right? People aren't talking about causal AI between in social media and so on, but the reality is
exactly.
like a lot of companies they're already using it, right? And it's a massive area of research as well. If you go to NeurIPS, if you go to the big conferences, let me just give you an example about this kind of silent revolution that no one's talking about. If you open
Mm,
your smartphone and you order an Uber, it's being run
right.
by Causal AI, right? And Uber has
Oh,
been one of the main companies that are actually developing a lot of science behind it. They have their own lab that is doing causal inference. And if you read their blogs, they write amazing things. And here is a situation. Here's what Causal AI is doing in that case, right? You go on, you check, okay, is there any car around me? How much is this trip going to cost? And what the computer is doing is that it's understanding that, look, what will happen if I give you, I don't know, a 20% or a 30% surge? Will you still want to order an Uber at that price? And furthermore, if you order, what is the probability that I'll be able to get another driver on the street, understanding that they'll be going to receive more for that trip as well? So there are a lot of moving parts that involve actually giving you the correct price or giving you the optimal price for your
mm,
trip, right? Which is like you have to accept the trip, you have to get more drivers on the street. I mean, maybe there is congestion on the street, so it needs to suggest an alternative route. So all of these moving pieces, they get thrown into this massive compute engine that they have, and using their own causal AI, they can give you, what is the optimal price. Maybe not optimal for you, but definitely optimal for them.
okay. Yeah, I think those are pretty cool insights in terms of how obviously we've always now with ChatGPT since last 2 months we've heard a lot about it, but we've never realized how causal AI has actually been in our day-to-day lives, and this is the best example that we could hear of, Andre. And I'm sure there are many more industries and places where causal AI kind of plays a very important role, and definitely we'll jump on to that as well. But before that, I have a few questions here from our audience. So let's take a few questions here.
Mhm.
Okay. So the thing that I was already talking about, Anna has asked a question here. Anna is asking, which industries do you think could benefit the most from investing in causal AI?
Yeah, this
Interesting.
is a great question. I have my biases because my bias is that the most noble thing that one can do is to invest in healthcare, because
Yeah.
saving lives is definitely comes first, right? It may not be the most, it may not be the easiest industry to get into, and it's
Mm,
definitely one of the slowest industries in terms of adopting new technologies, precisely because of how material the consequences are. But
yeah.
just to give an example in healthcare, right? You one of the things that we were working on with Mayo Clinic is understanding biomarkers for cancer. And if you think about it, this is a really tough problem. And here is the situation, right? Let's suppose that you go to someone and then you take a bunch of biopsies all around their bodies. You measure, which
Mm,
proteins you find in these biopsies. You take other kind of vital signs. Then you observe afterwards that some of these people they do develop some disease, namely cancer in that example. uh, there is going to be a lot of things that will be correlated for you to getting cancer, right? But to actually answer the question, which is which one of these biomarkers actually had a causal relationship for you getting cancer, that is actually
right.
really difficult because of the following fact, right? You cannot necessarily intervene in the system and then just inject people with those proteins because it will be highly unethical, right? Um,
Exactly.
so you need to understand from the data, from that observational data, you need to separate out what is like just pure spurious correlations from indicators that are truly causal. And it's an interesting anecdote, right? That up until the 90s, there was still some scientific debate around the effect of cigarettes on lung cancer, right? It took a long time until people actually understood why is it that cigarettes were driving increasing lung cancer. So usually extracting causal insights from observational data in healthcare is very, very complicated. And one of the
Right.
things that are very costly in the system is how difficult it is for companies to produce drugs, precisely because they need to do these interventional studies, right? They need to separate people into, okay, you get the drug, you get placebo, measure the effects over time, and these things are very expensive.
Right.
And I mean, there are many other industries where causal AI is important, but yeah, I had to start with this one because it's definitely the most interesting and the most material one. But things such as finance, we've done a lot of work in understanding, like, okay, what are some really good indicators that our markets are moving, right? How can you actually prepare for
Nice.
scenarios that are like what would happen in another lockdown? How would another lockdown affect, I don't know, macroeconomics variables? How would they affect
Exactly.
mhm. and and uh, and anything that is related to customer relationships as well, because of the following fact, right? If you have your clients, the question that you should be asking isn't necessarily to try to understand uh, who who you who you're going to which one of our clients is going to leave, right? It's not so interesting for you to know. Of course, there is a value in understanding which one of our clients is more likely to churn, to go to our competitors. But the real question that you should be asking is, what do I need to do in order to keep my clients engaged and in order to make sure that my clients are happy, right? So you need to understand what are the levers that you can pull, like what are the interventions that you can make to be sure
Right.
that your clients will react positively. So we try to bring in these areas a more proactive approach to customer relationship, which is like, don't worry about the churn aspect, right? Losing clients. Worry more about making your clients happy, and this is what Causal AI brings to the table.
No, I think definitely a lot of industries would be impacted for good for sure. And good example there in terms of starting from healthcare, where healthcare is one of the most, I would say, industries which picks AI very carefully after various stages of information that kind of goes into it and then practically implement it, which totally makes sense because it's the most important industry, and at the same time also financial industry. I think causal AI can really play a very important role in that space because, as you mentioned, causal AI can actually give out results where you can understand the market, you can understand the various factors that could affect the market. It could be one of those, could be obviously the lockdown, or
Mhm.
it could be something else tomorrow, which could be for the greater good, or something like obviously COVID, which that could shut down things. But those are great examples. Thanks, Andre, for bringing them up. And Anna says, thanks for your thoughtful responses. Definitely.
Oh, thank you for the question, Anna.
Quickly, yeah, quickly jumping on to something which is okay. Let's take one more question here from Sanjeev. So Sanjeev is asking, with evolution of AI products like ChatGPT or Google Bard, do you think it will impact reduce the manpower which lead in layoffs in coming days across all domains or sectors, or do you think something different, Andre?
Yeah, this is a great question. I honestly, uh, it's difficult to answer for certainty, right? Because of the following fact. I think that in the near term, it will be impossible that companies will not try to replace people with automated tools like ChatGPT. And I think it will be unwise, let me put it like that, to try to completely replace humans with these tools. um, for a variety of reasons. But to start, at the moment, if you have industries which are very fault tolerant, uh, that's okay, right? Because if you have, oh, how do I put it? There are some mistakes that are expected to happen with these tools. And I think that some people will say that, look, I don't care about these mistakes, right? I know that in some
Hmm.
cases it's going to be costly, but I accept that. So this is the question that these companies they should be asking, which is that like how much fault tolerance should I have in, and then depending on my level of my appetite for mistakes that may happen, then they're going to make these decisions. But the reality is like we're still very far away from a day in which a ChatGPT can completely replace a human, right? Because I think that the most
Exactly.
natural progression that will happen is that hopefully what will happen is that instead of that, people will be empowered to actually produce more by having access to these tools that can automate some tasks which are mundane and repetitive. But to completely eliminate the human there, that I don't believe that would be a wise decision. So when it comes to layoffs, I think this will be inevitable. That there will be, how do I put it, a reorganization in how work is treated based on these tools, right? Because I think we're just seeing the beginning of it. Now, if you take this exponential growth, as you said, and we extrapolate it 10 years from now, it's very hard to actually predict what kind of impact this will have. And from my point of view, it will actually leave a very long lasting impact, especially for roles which are kind of reliant on repetitive tasks which involve no creativity. uh, but on one hand, this is true, but then on the other hand, people who actually are creators, right? People who are actually bringing something new to the world. I think that these people will be empowered to do a lot more, and I think that more and more the ability to create differentiated value will be rewarded
Hmm.
more, because like what these tools are doing, they're just basically copying everything that exists out there, right? Which means that it could be that 10 years from now, uh, there is going to be absolutely no distinguishability between everyone who is using these tools, right? They're all
Right.
going to be completely generic, like using stock photos for everything. Which means that if you bring something new, if you are a creative person, if you leave differentiated value, then I think that you'll definitely be rewarded.
Okay. No, I think that kind of makes a lot of sense in terms of, somewhere it could, like, companies would have to take those hard decisions as well, but it won't replace that easily as what you say is definitely, it could, the results what they will generate could be very generic, and could be generalized in the longer run. So we might not see that type of a result what we are thinking of in terms of a lot of layoffs or
Mhm.
something on those lines. But I think in terms of the developments, it's more on the lines where how far it kind of goes, then we'll be able to see more about in the future. And I'm sure, Andre, it's like the one of the most difficult question when people ask, will humans be replaced by this? And it's like, not really, but then sometimes it also, then they kind of come up with a response where, see, I asked this and I literally do this. This is my job. And there was actually an example which was, picked up from one of when ChatGPT was just released, and there was this doctor who came up with something. He put a very critical case that he was working on, and he put that a case into the ChatGPT, and it gave like such unreal results. The doctor was shocked that he spent 20 years into his profession, and he see those understandings, those clear results on ChatGPT. So kind of shocking, and then it's a good thing to just be aware of something which is smart. But yeah,
Yeah,
definitely there are pros and cons as well.
yeah, it's true. And in those cases, right, if you think about it, the doctors should be happy that now they can get to spend more time with their patients. And maybe this is one of the big advantages, that if things are done correctly, it will give us time to actually focus on what's important. Because if something can be memorized by ChatGPT, then yeah, let's rely on ChatGPT to handle those tasks, but let's focus on the things that are really important, which is interpreting the information, being,
Hmm,
connecting with other human
right,
beings, right, which is where we excel, and actually
right.
making final decisions, which is something that we very much believe, right, that at the end of the day, there needs to be a human being that guides every process. The final click of the button, the final decision, the final word should come from a human. And that is very important, because the ability to generalize, to imagine new worlds, to see something that goes beyond that black box, goes beyond that, that generic thing, that I think it will be very, very hard to replace.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree anymore on on that. Definitely, those are great insights, Andre. And uh, just going back to our questions, definitely we have a lot of questions here, but also quickly for our audience, for those who are wondering why some folks are actually typing in hashtag the Ravit Show, it's just because we're giving away one swag. So just a reminder, you still have chance. We have 20 entries there. Towards the end of the show, Andre, I'll be doing something very cool where those who have typed in hashtag the Ravit Show, it will actually choose one random winner who gets the swag. That's something very cool we'll be doing. But here we have one very interesting question from Bill Michelle from YouTube. Let's pick this one. Given the training required for ChatGPT to upgrade their model, DaVinci is current up to June 21. Will Google Bard have an intrinsic advantage in cause and effect analysis due to recency? What do you think?
That's a very good question, because the answer is I don't know, and here is where I don't know, right. I like my feeling is that, given the current architecture that is used, it will be very hard for any of these machines to actually understand cause and effect. Uh,
Right.
because they're not really trained for that fact, right? The way that these architectures that are trained are such that they learn to predict, let's say, missing words, or they learn to predict what will be the next word in a sentence, amongst other things. So the idea is essentially they learn to kind of plagiarize the or learn to memorize everything that they read,
Hmm.
and store that into some things which are called, these latent representations or whatever, which is a more abstract way of thinking about words, right? But there's nothing in the architecture that actually kind of leads itself for the machine to learn about cause and effect relationships. And this is one thing that is really cool, that I remember someone posting on LinkedIn, which is that if you try to ask ChatGPT whether the sun rising causes the rooster to sing, or the other way around, it actually doesn't know how to answer that. So
Hmm.
but that's the question. I don't know if Google actually have thought about it. I know that this is a very active area of research as well, which is how to produce actually causal intelligence from text.
Hmm.
But we'll see. I'm very excited to uh, really looking forward to see what Google will put out. Hopefully, to be even more interesting than ChatGPT. But yeah, from a cause and effect perspective, my feeling is that it will still be lacking certain magical ingredients for it to be able to reason about cause and effect.
Okay, that's pretty interesting, and definitely we all are looking forward to see how it kind of also progresses the AI world to the next level with Google Bard. So looking forward to that. One question that I had was from the audience itself. I'm picking this one, and this is kind of like a follow up question as well from Aditi. Hey, Andre, how does the use of causality in AI impact decision making and prediction accuracy? So it's kind of interesting to learn more about how this kind of works in the causal AI world. So, Andre, any
Mm.
thoughts?
Absolutely. To talk about decision making, let me give you an example. So and I give this example to everybody that they're probably sick of hearing it, but let me do it again. So there was this company, and they're a consumer company, right? They sell direct to consumers, and they have a product. So they
Mm.
came with the following question, right? Which is that look, we developed a model to predict which customers are going to leave, right? Which customers are going to cancel their subscription. And they found that the customers who receive discounts are the ones more likely to cancel their subscription, right? Which is very
Oh,
counterintuitive. They train the machine learning model, then they use typical explainability methods like Shapley values, and this is what it found, that actually discounts were a predictor. So I mean, it
mm,
seems like very paradoxical, right? If you receive a discount, you're happy, you're not annoyed.
exactly.
Yeah. So, but this is the situation, right? When we dug into the data, here's what we found, that in reality, what was happening is that uh, the amount of bugs that a customer was facing, right, was leading them to complain about it to customer service. So what happens is, like, you try to use the product, it didn't work. Then you go to customer service and then you say that, look, this doesn't work. I'm very unhappy. I want to cancel my subscription. But instead of canceling their subscription, customer service was like, yeah, I'm going to give you a 20% discount. Really sorry about that.
Ah, okay.
Then they go and then they continue to use the product. They're still annoyed because the company didn't fix the problem. And after a
Mm,
few months, they end up canceling the subscription either way. Now, here, but this is something that you get immediately using Causal AI, because Causal AI has something called causal discovery. And in causal discovery, you put in the data in there. And what it does is that it tells you that, look, actually, the amount of bugs that a customer is facing, right, the complaints, is actually the thing that causes the discount to be given. So there is a direct causal relationship
okay.
between me complaining and me receiving a discount.
Mm,
There's also a causal relationship between me complaining and me quitting. But the causal impact of receiving a discount, for you to calculate that, right, for you to understand what's the impact of discount on renewals, on customer lifetime value, you need to control for the number of bugs or for the number of complaints, meaning that you cannot compare a discount applied to someone who has never complained with a discount applied to someone who complained a lot. And this is one of the things that you get for free in Causal
wow.
AI, right? Which is that you understand what is really the causal impact of a variable rather than the correlation between. Because if you think of just from a correlation perspective, when you receive a discount, you're leaving. But from a causal perspective, in reality, when you receive a discount, you are more likely to stay, right? That drives you
Right.
to stay. But because there is what we call the spurious correlation, it's a classic example of, if you guys are interested in statistics in the audience, you should look for Simpson's paradox. It's a really beautiful thing, and yeah, and this is what happened. But this is something that you now, going to the point of how does it impact decision making. Now, if you want to make a decision and you get a machine learning model, you learn nothing, right? You just learn to predict that someone is going to leave, which is of course fair. But at the same time, what do you have to do when you look at the causal diagram, when you look at the relationship between the variables? It becomes obvious what you have to do, right? Precisely
Right.
because it tells you what is the impact of each one of these factors on your overall success.
No, I think first of all, that's a very good example that you've given there, Andre, because sometimes we look at things in a different way. Obviously, if you mention about a company that went out and who wanted to learn more about who would be actually wanting to leave the platform, it could be someone obviously getting discounts, and that could come as a shocker. Why would someone leave the platform if they are getting discount? But the cause is something different, and Causal AI actually identifies it and also gives more insights. So I think that kind of is definitely super interesting and game changing project for a lot of companies for sure. That also brings me to one important question around Causal AI itself. So can we discuss more around the ethical considerations of causal AI, and also how do you ensure that it is being used for good and not any harm? So just the ethical ways around it.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So to discuss ethical considerations, right? I think we need to understand that there is a problem right now in the world of AI and machine learning, which is bias, right? Because of the following
Mm,
fact, that there are a couple of problems. So let me focus on the first one, which is that a machine learning model will basically repeat the patterns that it finds in the data. So let me give you
mm,
one example. If you have a company that basically is using AI for recruitment, and it's doing
mm,
the following, right? It's looking at the people who have succeeded in the company and tries to identify candidates who resemble the people who succeeded in the company. And by the way, this is a real example that happened. What ends up happening is that AI is going to look at the CVs of, I don't know, the CEO, the VPs, and blah blah blah, and then they're going to try to find CVs that look like that, and they try to look for patterns which aren't necessarily that, oh, this is a great over accomplisher, it's a very highly educated person, but no, it it may focus on things such as well, it's a male who studied in this or that school, and with that it actually learns implicit biases, right? So it may learn to discriminate by gender, by ethnicity, or it learns that, look, because all of the executives in the company, they're friends, they went to certain schools, now let's try to hire people only from those schools, which is nonsense if you think about it, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not really conducive to success. And there is a second problem with machine learning today, that it doesn't really understand that it's sometimes making stupid decisions because of these spurious correlations. Let me give you an example of spurious correlation, right? So in the US, there was a model that tried to predict whether someone who was incarcerated was likely to reoffend, right? Was likely to commit another crime. And the way that they created this model used the zip code as one of the predictors, right? They put your zip code in there, and the model, based on your location, based on the city that you live, it tries to predict, okay, how likely are you are to be incarcerated. The problem is the following: in the US, zip code is very much linked to someone's ethnicity, right? Because there are a
mm,
lot of racial segregations in terms of which neighborhoods people live, which means effectively that the model was acting negatively against people of a certain race.
mm,
But why is that a problem, right? Of course, I mean, we understand why that's a problem, because you're creating an implicit bias on race by using these variables, which is zip code. What we have found, and we've written a lot about it in the literature as well, is that for you to really get rid of these biases, what you have to do is to look at things from a causal perspective, right? Because now, if you understand that, like, you living in that neighborhood was driven by your ethnicity, right? There is a direct link, a causal link between your ethnicity and that neighborhood. You know for a fact that if you discriminate based on this neighborhood, you will implicitly be discriminating against ethnicity as well. And which means that for people to actually get rid of biases and make sure that AI is used in an ethical way, the first thing that needs to be done is to look more holistically at the entire data and identify possible sources of biases or possible sources of misuse that can happen because there are links in the data, for instance, zip code
Right.
and ethnicity, which you haven't really observed, or which are things that you cannot observe if you're just using machine learning, right? Because you really need to look into the cause and effect relationships within the data itself.
Right. I think just processing this is so much detailing around it, and I think definitely it started from about the ethical consideration that you write, where it's about the biases in that kind of plays a very very important role. Also, we have a comment here from George, but sometimes to zip code belongs to highly delusional zip zones as well.
Hmm.
Any thoughts there,
Yeah, and
Andre?
that's fair, right? And that becomes a problem of attribution because of the following fact: it is true that some zones will have high delinquency rate, but at the same time, like in the legal considerations, we call it desperate outcomes, right? Which means that the model itself, it didn't learn anything about the person's race, or it didn't learn anything about the person's protective attribute. But by using the
Mm,
model, you will give an outcome which is going to be disparate between people of a certain race versus the other. Now, uh, what needs to be done is that, yes, you can still consider the fact that certain zip codes, right, certain neighborhoods will have a higher crime rate, but the question shouldn't be so much to as to whether you're going to penalize someone for living in that neighborhood, but rather what can we do in order to uh, actually ensure that there is going to be a lower crime rate in that neighborhood. Because one easy solution is to, yes, let's incarcerate everyone or give everyone in that neighborhood a higher a higher higher sentences. But what will happen is that because these people in this neighborhood, they're given higher sentences, like 10 years from now, they will be penalized, which means that they will be more likely to reincide just because they spent more time incarcerated, right? So you created a self-fulfilling prophecy in the sense that you penalize people more for one attribute. Because of this penalty, they are more likely to actually have worse outcomes, and they're more likely to become reincidents. So this is one of the challenges. And to be fair, I don't think we have a perfect answer for that, but at least understanding that there is a problem, and this problem will lead to outcomes that are different for people with different races. That's a first step in order to really addressing it.
exactly, and I totally agree with that, Andre. A very good topic, and we also have a comment here from Jennifer. This is a topic that absolutely needs to be prioritized with the future of AI machine learning advancements. Reducing biases will help humankind to better understand each other on a global level. Very true.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, going back to the questions that we have for our audience, I know we're almost time, but then just two more questions that I have for you, Andre, from our audience. One here from George Firikin. Hi, George. Good to see you. Do you have a favorite app services that is built on top of ChatGPT?
Oh, that's a good one. Yes, I do. It's
Wow.
a sequel, ChatGPT to sequel. I don't remember the name. Sorry, I need to Google that.
Okay. Yeah.
But yes, because of course I like to outsource my job as well to the machine because sometimes I'm stupid, and everything that I can do when it comes to writing less code, yeah, that's definitely a win. And I realized that I suck at SQL. So, I mean, just ask ChatGPT to give me SQL queries, and that's amazing.
Awesome. Very cool. We'll get you the name George after the show for sure. And also one question yours. Um, from Aditi, let's take this one. Can you describe any recent advancements or developments in the field of causal AI?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the let me give a breakdown of the three main things that we do in causal AI, right? The first one is
Yeah,
causal discovery. Causal discovery, it's a really hard topic. If you think about it, it is me picking up data, and then from that data, I want to turn that data into a causal graph. The second thing that is done is what we call causal inference. Causal inference is the act of taking in a causal graph, right? You understand the structure of the data, but now you want to answer the question, what is the impact of one variable into the other? So going back to the example that I was giving, right, in terms of bugs, discounts, and renewals, right? The first step is for me to build that causal graph to understand that exists that set of relationships. The second step is quantifying them, saying that, look, if I give that person a discount, what is the expected probability that they will renew the service, right? What is the, I don't know, the how much money am I expected to receive in the long term? So
right,
it's a
right,
quantification problem. And the third one is basically uh, what do you do with it? Right? How do you make better decisions based on that? So now, the most exciting for me is actually not the first nor the second, because of the following fact. We've done, like, there are many, many research groups, and to be fair, the last 5 years, I think, were remarkable in terms of the amount of papers that were written around causal discovery and around causal inference as well, although this is a more well known subject. But the
mm,
latter, which is like what are the optimal decisions that you can do if you understand cause and effect relationships, that's something that's new. So there were a lot of things being done, a lot of advancements in, look, if I want to get a customer to stay, and I want to ensure that I'm spending as little money as possible, what can I do, right? What is the cheapest way for me to ensure that the customer will stay with us, and other things as
right,
well, such as, like, if I have a lot of if I have a certain marketing budget, right, and I want to allocate that marketing budget into many different channels, I don't know, Facebook ads or LinkedIn ads and so on, and I want to get the best possible revenue, what do I need to do? So this thing is the first one
right.
being, it's called algorithmic recourse. These, I think, are the most exciting new developments in causal AI, because they actually bring in a quantitative model and make it kind of usable in the real world.
Hmm. No, I think definitely these are great. Already the developments which are happened, and I'm sure the ones that will be happening are quite intriguing and super exciting. So looking forward to that, Andre. Before I jump onto our okay, let's take this question and then I'll ask a final question. But I will definitely be announcing the winners of the Ravit Show swag. So do not forget to tweet, just put in the chat hashtag the Ravit Show. Just for those who've joined in late, quick reminder about that. Awesome. So also I know for a fact where you've been doing a lot around Causa AI at CausaLens. So can you tell us a little about CausaLens? What's the next big thing that you're planning? And also, if folks want to reach out and learn more about the resources, where can they go and learn more about it?
Absolutely. So I invite everyone to follow us on LinkedIn, and we'll be having a webinar in the coming weeks where we'll be basically
Mm,
launching to the world our new product, which is a decision OS platform. And to the topic of
mm,
decision making, right? This is, I think, the biggest, the most exciting thing, which is how do we actually help people make better decisions, understanding, cause and effect relationships, right? Because I think that my aspiration is that at some point in the future, everyone is going to have their own kind of causal AI personal assistant who will be helping them, make all the hard decisions in their lives. What should I have for dinner? Should I get married? Should I buy a house? Yes. But yes, tune in for that webinar that we'll be hosting in the coming weeks about
Nice.
Decision OS. And yes, and if you'd like to hear more about CausaLens, yes, you should go to our website, causalens.com, follow us on LinkedIn, or feel free to reach out directly to me if you think that you're interested in any of the points that I talked about today.
Okay, pretty cool. Thanks for that info, Andre. And definitely, folks can join in and learn more about, through the webinar about what are the new advancements and also about CausaLens. So thanks for that. Quickly jumping on to announcing our winners. And this is what I was actually talking about, Andre. The cool stuff that we do. We already have 24 entries here. So let's do the quick raffle. Let's see who the winner is. It has actually picked up from YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, everywhere. Those who have typed in hashtag the Ravit Show. The winner is M. Sampath Kumar. Congratulations. You win one swag of the Ravit Show. So very cool things that we do for our audience here. And this is one of those. Great discussion, great insights, Andre. I know for a fact, we can talk on for another hour around Causal AI, around ChatGPT, and many more upcoming things. But we'll keep it for a 2.0, and definitely we'll discuss more things, in the future. And also would love to have you again on the Ravit Show. Why not, to discuss more things around it. But thank you once again for coming on the show and sharing such great insights, and also to our audience for such lovely questions. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much for having me. Absolute pleasure. Looking forward to the next time.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Andre. Thank you everyone for joining today. Thanks.